Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. Behind me, 2009 Subaru Legacy. We're gonna be replacing the rear brake pads and rotors. Let's get started. First thing we wanna do is jack the vehicle up, put it on jack stands. I'll pull a tire off. Then we wanna take a flat bladed screwdriver, put it in between the caliper and the rotor, and we'll pull towards ourselves. There we go. That'll suck in our caliper piston most of the way, and it'll also tell us if our slide pins are seized or not. Everything looks good. Caliper bolts are a 14 millimeter. For the bottom, it's easier to use a wrench or have an extension. Buzz those off the rest of the way. Just set this aside. Now, if this spins on you while you're pulling off that bolt, you can hold it with a wrench. Pull off our brake pads. Get our hardware. What I like to do while the bracket is still on is re-grease our slide pins. We'll pull these out of their boot, just like that. We'll wipe them off really good. That old caliper grease off, and we'll install new stuff. Put that back in, give it a twist as it goes in, pull off our bottom, wipe it off. I like doing one at a time because they are slot specific. This has a little rubber on it, that goes on the bottom if you pulled both of yours out at the same time. Put some grease on it, put it back in. Twist it. There we go. Now let's pull our bracket off. This can be a little struggle. Let me show you. The two bracket bolts you get through a hole in the knuckle. So right here is the bolt, and then right here is the hole. That's for our bottom. The top one, the bolt is right here, and our hole is through the back. Hopefully you can see my finger through the knuckle. You have to kind of mess around with a deep socket. I believe this top one I use a deep 14 millimeter, and for the bottom I use a shallow 14 with an extension. So let's pull those out. For the bottom, I'm actually using a deep socket with an extension. Just a little 3-inch extension. Hopefully we can break this loose. Oh my gosh. So I couldn't break that bottom with my 3/8 ratchet. So I'm going 1/2 inch. That fits right in, no problem. Feels like it has a good bite. I'm gonna use a breaker bar, or try to anyway. No, maybe not, there's not enough room. I'm gonna see if my impact fits in there. Okay, it does. There we go. So I was just a little too wimpy for my 3/8, but if you have an impact, a 5-inch extension with a deep impact socket. Let's see what we can do at the top. Maybe I could do the same thing. No, not quite enough room. Let's just try to get that with the ratchet. There we go. Top one wasn't too bad. Buzz that out the rest of the way. All right, we'll pull this off. Now we'll take a wire brush or a flat bladed screwdriver and clean out these channels really good. Next, we'll get a rotor off. Make sure your parking brake is disengaged, and we'll hit it with a hammer. We want to make sure we don't hit our wheel studs, just around the perimeter. There, saw that pop off. Now we'll take a drill with the wire wheel, clean off our hub surface. Now with some brake clean, we'll spray down our hub and our parking brakes. And now's a good time. If your shoes need to be replaced, go ahead and replace them. But these look really good. Now let's prep a rotor. Our new rotors have a protective coating on them for storage. So we'll take some brake clean, spray it down. And then we'll wipe them off. All right, nice, let's install them. Get on our new rotor. Now with our caliper bracket, we want to install the hardware. You have the option before the hardware goes on to put a little caliper grease on the bracket under the hardware. You don't put grease on top of the hardware, but we can put just a little underneath. Doesn't take a lot. This will act as a corrosion inhibitor. Just rub it around. We want to wipe any excess off so it doesn't get on our brake pads or our rotor. So just especially in between here where the rotor goes in, just want to make sure there's none in there. Okay, that looks good. New hardware just drops in, just like that. And like that. What I like to do, take my flat screwdriver and just push it in as far as it'll go, just making sure that it's seated all the way. Nice. Now let's install it. It's easiest to put the bottom bolt in first. Get a few threads started. Let me move you. Now for the top, we'll put it in our socket first, feed it through, move our caliper out of the way. All right, there we go. Suck that down. Do the bottom one. These are 39 foot-pounds. The angle's kind of weird. Can't get this bottom one, so I'll just have to guess. It might be why it was so tight. Somebody else had to guess. All right, I feel like that's good enough. Now we'll get our caliper. Want to push our piston in the rest of the way. I'm using this caliper piston tool. I have a different one in the description, a pretty good one if you don't own one yourself. There we go, just push it in. Set that aside, put our pad in, like that. Then our inside pad, we want the wear indicator on the bottom. Caliper goes over, put in our bolts. Now I don't have a torque spec for these, but the front were 20 foot-pounds, so I'm just gonna do 20 for the rear. There's that one, and that one. That's it, we'll throw our tire back on, take it for a spin. All right, there you go. That's how you can replace rear brake pads and rotors on a Subaru Legacy. Overall, not too bad. Getting that bracket off can be a little tricky, so just play with your extensions and whether you use a deep socket or a shallow socket. Other than that, next you want to take it on a break-in test drive. Now before you put it in gear, you want to pump up the brakes. Because we pushed that piston in, you want that caliper piston to come back out and put pressure on the brakes. Then we take it for a test drive, 30, 35 miles an hour, then come to a nice solid stop. And we don't want to lock up the brakes, but we do want to feel a nice positive stop. Then bring it back up 30, 35 miles an hour, come to a stop. Do that about 4 or 5 times. Your new brakes are ready to go. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, comment, post down below. I'll have links in the description for all the parts and tools used. Thanks for watching. See you on the next one.